Motoring 2013 is brought to you in part by Shell V-Power Premium Gasoline.
We've been covering the automotive beat for 25 years, and it's very seldom you ask a question and get a straight answer. It's very political, as executives like to cover their you-know-what. However, at the launch of the 2014 Chevy Impala, a GM executive told us she parked the new car in her driveway at home. Neighbors came over and said, "Wow, what a cool, good-looking car." Then they looked at her and said, "We thought you worked for General Motors." You know, it was refreshing of her to share that story with us, because for so many years, General Motors and Bland were synonymous. Not anymore. There's no such thing as a Bland Cadillac and a Buick, and now it's Chevrolet's turn. We've got the Malibu, the Spark, and even the Volt. And the Chevy Impala, well, it's the final vehicle on the redo list. So let's find out if the neighbors were right.
See the USA in your Chevrolet. America is asking you to call. Drive your Chevrolet through the USA. America's the greatest land of all.
I've had quite a few of them over the years. I had one from the year of my birth, 1969, and I've had a lot of the different derivatives over the years in different forms, from Biscayne all the way up to Caprice.
It's a very well-established nameplate. It's kind of unfortunate in the last 2 or 3 generations of the car, it hasn't been a car like the Impalas we remember from the late 50s and the 60s. It was a fleet car, it was a taxi, it was a rental. What they're trying to do with this car is to say, this car is pretty enough, this car rides well enough, it has a nice enough interior, we don't have to give them away to fleet and daily rentals anymore.
We're looking to be smart. We're looking to keep residual value of this car high. So, so there is a strong retail market for this car. I mean, you're going to see the change from where we were about 70% fleet to now we're going to be about 70% retail with this car. This is the entire new face for Chevrolet. You can see it's different from our previous bow tie grille, which had a solid bar across it. Now we've gone to a different style grille, but this is a complete redesign from front to back. You're going to see some of this look carried into all our Chevrolet products, and it takes a long time to change public perception. I mean, people don't change their opinions right away. You know, people might have remembered Chevrolets that weren't all that distinctive, but this is a beautiful looking car and a set of complete new face for Chevrolet.
The 3.6-liter V6 is a strong engine. It's one of their family of the worldwide engines they use in cars in Europe and across the world, really. It's good enough for Cadillac. It should be good enough for Chevrolet. Gives strong performance. It's quiet. The 6-speed automatic transmission shifts really well.
All manufacturers, whether it's a Kia Rio or a Chevy Impala, like to brag about the fact that their vehicle has 4 sets of disc brakes. Well, our Bill Gardner will tell you that unless it's a performance car, he'd rather see the discs in front and drum brakes in the back. The reason that, unlike drum brakes, which enclose and protect the rotor and the brakes, disc brakes are exposed. And here at the back, they're picking up all the elements, the grit and grunge of the 4 seasons, and it can pit the rotors, and also the rotors are susceptible to rusting. Well, the new Impala comes with something called Duralife rotors, exclusively engineered by GM Canada, and it will eliminate any chance of rust and, of course, save you money in the long run.
This is a large car. I mean, it's one of the biggest cars in the segment. Cavernous sounds almost like a bad word, but when you're inside it, I mean, you have great headroom, lots of legroom front and back. The car is dimensionally about the same as the previous generation Impala, but yet it has way more legroom, more headroom, just better use of packaging, better use of interior space, as well as a slightly larger trunk.
I think Chevrolet has really knocked it out of the park with the Impala. This is definitely an important halo car for them, and the fact that the large car market is starting to realize that it's not just about making the vehicle big, it's about making it big inside with functionality and features.
Although the new Impala's wheelbase is only an inch longer than the outgoing vehicle, there's a lot more room back here, especially in the back seats. In fact, in front, you've got an extra 3 inches of legroom. And the trunk, well, it is humongous. 18 cubic feet and even more when you fold the back seats down. You really think about this vehicle as a no-compromise car. In fact, you got to ask yourself, who needs a crossover?
This car is a complete redesign. I mean, we have left all the old Impalas, other than perhaps some of the beauties of the mid-60s behind. I mean, this is classic styling. You know, everything from the very low hood, you know, to the high rear end, which helps aerodynamics, an entire new chassis system as well.
Styling always sells. That's the first step that they've got covered. But from that point on, the car rides well, it drives well, so they've got a shot, they've got a story to tell. The challenge for them will be to tell that story and to convince customers to come and take a look.
At the end of the day, this is a car that really is its own animal, and it's important to make a nod to your heritage, but it's also important to realize that you can't stay there.
Who's in charge here, you or your car? Could be a life or death question. More later on Kenzie's Corner.
It's been facelifted and it's been reclawed on this edition of Test Drive, the all-wheel drive version of Jaguar's XF. After years of stumbling around in the stylistic wilderness, the once proud British company is back to penning its stunning designs. The XF, and I know about beauty being in the eye of the beholder, is an eye-catching piece, especially when it's finished in a black paint that has such a deep luster it looks as though you can dip a finger in it. It is, as many onlookers purred, one pretty kitty. The cabin of this XF is opulent as any Jaguar should be. There's a hood and a half's worth of leather covering the comfortable seats right the way through to the dash. However, if you want some of the nicer toys, for instance, this is Canada, a heated steering wheel is optional. Navigation system with a backup camera, smart key, the list goes on and adds up to quite a lot of money. Talking about setbacks, right here. This screen is just too small and too cluttered. It needs to be larger and more intuitive. The XF comes with a 3-litre V6 that benefits greatly from the fact its air is blown into the cylinders by a supercharger. This puts 340 horsepower and 332 pound-feet of torque at the driver's disposal. It all comes on tap sweetly and provides the urgency needed under hard acceleration. The XF romps from rest to 100k in just 6 seconds. Of course, if more is the order of the day, the XFR and its 5-litre supercharged V8, well, it's the answer. The 510 horsepower and 461 pound-feet of torque chops a full second off the acceleration run, but more importantly, it adds some real mustard to the mid-range when those stallions are flexed to full potential. The XF's all-wheel drive system is proactive. The good news, as in years before, it primarily drives the rear wheels, which preserves the rear drive feel. However, it is proactive in as much as if you tromp it off the line, it recognises the fact that it will send some power forward, which eliminates unwanted wheel spin. In the end, this cat is as cool on a snowy road as it is a beautiful day like today. A big part of the reason for the alacrity is down to the all-wheel drive system. It ensures the power is put to the pavement without wasting time spinning tyres. The hitch is that at low speeds, with some steering input dialed in, the traction control system enters the picture. It's a really annoying trait, to say the very least. The other reason the XF accelerates so flawlessly boils down to its 8-speed transmission. It has a ratio for every eventuality and then some. It's a smooth operator that snicks up and down the cogs almost as though it's reading the driver's mind. You know, a lot of people have complained about how difficult it is to get into the back seat of the Jag, and once you get here, there's no legroom. Well, I had no difficulty getting in, and as long as the front seats aren't all the way back, there's surprising legroom and decent headroom. There is, however, one thing that really did mystify me. It's almost as though Jaguar want to keep the fact that this car has actually got split folding rear seats a secret. The handles, Well, they're buried way the heck up here where you can't find them unless you read the owner's manual. The XF excels in the manner in which it rides and drives. The suspension has enough compliance it wafts along the highway. However, drop the hammer and go wailing through a series of sweeping curves or subject it to a pylon test and this Jag just hunkers down and gets on with the job of obeying driver input. The steering is cast from the very same mould. It is nicely weighted, has a great on-centre feel and it turns into a corner with delightful accuracy. As I say, this cat has finally been reclawed. The XF is responsive, opulent and the all-wheel drive system, well, it finally means it's a year-round proposition. The disappointment? Quite simply, it takes almost $15,000 worth of options to go from the base car to the one you're looking at right here.
Alberta is Canada's truck country, and that's why Ford has brought us out here to Drumheller. It's 2013. This is a 2013 Ford. What's different about it? Not very much. However, there's a lot of new trucks this year. New Chevy, new Dodge, and Ford, they didn't want to be left out. So they brought us out. Originally, they talked about the F150, new projector headlamps, a little bit of work on the front end, and some new tow mirrors. But past that, there's really nothing here. So they brought us out, brought every version of the F-150, brought out the Super Duties, even gave us a Raptor to play with in the mud. Why? Because they don't want Canadians to forget about them.
So while new tech was thin at this Ford show, we did have the whole lineup to play with, including towing with the Super Duty, running the Raptor on a dirt bike track, even towing over 10,000 pounds with an EcoBoost-powered F-150 down through the hoodoos of Drumheller. It was a good reminder of the depth of the whole F-Series. Still, 2013 is a carryover year, though there always seems to be a new trim. This year, it's called the Limited Package, and it brings to 9 the number of trim levels now available in F-Series. Is there no limit on luxury?
We sell about 30% of our mix there, and there doesn't seem to be an end to that. So customers are really calling to have those luxury features, their creature comforts, their luxury leathers in their pickup trucks as well.
What wasn't mentioned in Alberta, though, was small diesel. That's strange because it's been months since Ram announced that they're putting a 3-liter diesel in their half-ton this year. So naturally, I had to ask, what about Ford?
I get that question a lot, so we know that there's a lot of diesel lovers out there, so I can't talk about future plans, of course.
Sure, they don't want to tip their hand, but the fact is small diesel is coming. How do I know? Ford's new commercial transit van will offer a 3.2-liter diesel this year, and guess what? It's already using the same 6-speed transmission found in the F-150. This all adds up to a diesel in the half-ton sooner than later. For 2013, Ford offers 4 engines in the F-150, but the most popular by far is the V6 EcoBoost. This engine offers power and fuel economy. That's the holy grail for truck buyers. In fact, over half of all new Ford trucks are now ordered with EcoBoost, a trend that should stay strong into the next model year.
Customers want it all. Fuel economy in combination with the towing and the payload. And I think from a customer's perspective, they're buying something that's going to get their job done at the best fuel economy in that combination of a package.
Last year, Ford sold over 100,000 F-Series in Canada for the first time. And this year, they're on track to probably doing 150,000. So even though there's nothing really new about this 2013 F-150, this entire lineup still very much deserves the limelight.
Our customers told us they really didn't want a much bigger SUV. They said this vehicle was about the perfect size. It's more car-like in its overall proportions, easier to drive around town, easier to maneuver, park. They really didn't want a bigger car, so they asked us to stay close to the footprint of the existing car.
The motoring tip of the week is brought to you by Walmart. For everyday low prices on Pennzoil, conventional and synthetic oils.
Our motoring tip of the week, TLC for your air cleaner. Now, the air cleaner system on most of today's cars is comprised of a series of hoses to connect the air cleaner box to the engine, and in most cases a two-piece air cleaner housing. It's usually a clamshell that opens up fairly easily with a series of screws, or in some cases just some spring metal clips that you pop off with your thumb, and you can separate the two sides of the clamshell housing and pull the air cleaner out. Now, in this Nissan Versa, there's a couple of tabs you depress right here, and there's an access panel on the top that looks just like that, and the air cleaner loads from the end, and it literally comes out of the car that easily. There's the dirty air cleaner out of this Versa, and in the bottom of the air filter you can see there's dirt and debris that are going to fall out that have been trapped in this filter. Now, it's the primary function of this filter to filter out any dust and grit that are in the air that would be ingested by your engine. It will suck in grit and debris that's fairly heavy, even some large particles, but most importantly, what this filter's got to stop is silicon, not silicone, silicon. That's dust and dirt. That's grit, and if you go under the hood of this car and just touch any item under the hood of this car, it's all gritty and abrasive, and that abrasive grit that's in the air will wear out the piston rings and cylinder walls in your engine in very short order. So an engine that would have lasted you 300, 400, 500,000 K with good filtration could be worn out and burning oil at 80 or 90,000 K if you don't have a good air filter. Now, you also want to get into that air cleaner housing and vacuum up any of the heavier grit and sand and debris that are down in the housing. The vibration of the engine causes it to fall out of the filter. It's all down in that housing. You need to vacuum it out, mix up some soap and water, wash out that housing, let it air dry, put your new filter in. That's your motoring tip of the week.
This exact car embarrassed me a couple of weeks ago at a track day. Let me tell you what happened. I pulled up beside it, looked over, and saw an Audi TT, and I thought, I'll make pretty quick work of this. But it turns out it's not an ordinary TT. It's a TT RS. And on that day, the RS stood for making Russ look stupid. But now I have the TT RS, and this is the 2-minute test drive. This TT on steroids has enough of everything to make you smile. .360 horsepower and 343 pounds-feet of torque from its turbocharged 2.5-liter TFSI inline 5-cylinder engine. That's mated to a real 6-speed manual transmission. When you add that to Audi's legendary Quattro all-wheel drive system, you have a real rocket, and all that for $67,000. This one is fully loaded, including the audio package and the navigation system with AMI, and that brings it up to $77,000 out the door. And there's a sport button, which activates the sport exhaust, and that makes it sound just that much better. This TT RS goes 280 kilometers an hour. It'll leap from 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in 4.3 seconds. You're asking yourself, how fast really is that? Well, that's as fast as a Porsche 911 Carrera 4 and just as fast as a V8-powered Audi R8. What really impresses me is the level of grip. I don't even have to brake going into turn 1. It's simply back on the gas and off we go. Well, all that speed is great. That grip is what keeps you safe when you're out on the highway. We all know the Audi product line is brilliant, and these RS models are just more of a good thing. The problem you have is sometimes they're hard to tell apart. So if you see a TT with this fixed rear wing on it, that'll tell you it's an RS. And if you're at a track day, don't make the same mistake I did. Mind your P's and Q's. I'm Russ Bond, and this has been the 2-Minute Test Drive.
Closed captioning for Motoring 2013 is brought to you by
Greener, fuel efficient, global. This is Chevrolet Now, driving our world forward.
There's been a lot of technological development in cars over the last 100 and so years, most of it for the good. I mean, does anybody really want to go back to non-power steering? But some of the newer systems, well, you got a little bit of a problem with them. One of them is automatic braking systems. These are systems which, if they detect that a collision's about to occur, the car automatically slams the brakes on for you and avoids the collision. Sounds like a good idea? Well, yeah, but as you're about to see, sometimes it doesn't work. Now, we've fuzzed out the brand of this particular case. A lot of car companies have this system. We've seen this type of failure in other cars as well. We just happen to have video for this particular one. They have, however, worked to my advantage on at least one occasion. I was driving a Ford in the south of France, and they told us to drive through the automatic toll booth lane at about 35K. The transponder would trigger the system, the gate would come up, and away we went through. Well, it didn't trigger the gate, and all of a sudden, wham, the car screeched to a halt. So, yay for that. But the fact is, these systems are not there to protect you, they're there to help you. You do have a collision avoidance warning system. It's called your eyes. You've got to use it. You have a braking system in your car. You get to activate it with your foot. So use the technology to help you, but don't count on it. It's like the old automatic airplane where they didn't have a pilot, it was just a computer. And all it said was, don't worry, ladies and gentlemen, this is an automatic aircraft and absolute nothing can possibly go wrong. Go wrong, go wrong, go wrong. I'm Jim Kinsey.
Every now and then a vehicle comes along that surprises you, and that is the case with the Chevy Impala. This is a big car. I wasn't looking forward to driving it, but it drives more like a smaller sports sedan. In fact, the bigness comes inside. More room for passengers and a lot of luggage space, and that's a good thing. But you know, the big feature of the new Impala has to be the styling. This is a good-looking car. I mean, the Chevy Impala has actually become a head-turner. Who would have thunk? Before we go, make sure you check us out at motoringtv.com and join us on Facebook for the total motoring experience. That's it for now. We'll see you next time out as we continue to bring you more stories about cars and the people who drive them.
This is a brand new platform from top to bottom, from front to back, chassis, suspension, tuning, engine, interior, all brand new.
Motoring 2013 has been brought to you in part by Shell V-Power, premium gasoline.